Welcome to Films and Stuff with your hosts, Pete Mitchell and Ethan Hunt.
Hi, everybody. Welcome back to Films and Stuff. I am Ethan, joined by the ever-present Pete. Hey, Pete, what's up?
Not much, buddy. How are you?
Well, today is a new episode of Films and Stuff, and instead of doing a review of a series or a movie,
Or streamer skip,
we're going to take a step back and dive into some details about streaming platforms.
That's absolutely right. We thought that in lieu of this week's normal streamer skip episode, it would be a good idea to go through a satisfaction survey, which was just released this last week or maybe 2 weeks ago. For context, as all of our listeners know, what Ethan and I do are a little bit more, let's say, subjective. We try to convert subjective to more objective by putting data values to our reviews. And the whole point is that allows us to give us a grade, not only to each show, but then an ultimate rating for each platform. And that gives us a basis of comparison, not just month to month or show to show, but also year on year for different individual genres or different platforms. The problem is it's a sample size of just two. It's just Ethan. It's just Pete. So our data, while we still think it's relatively objective,
we stand behind our data. Let's
100%, 100%. But it's very skewed, right?
Yeah.
Neither of us like scary movies or horror films.
True.
We watch rom-coms, but not always, and certainly not all of them. I can't remember the last anime I saw, and certainly wasn't looking forward to them. Right? These are just three genres of movies. You know, like if you looked at it, I think it's relatively
What's the last rom-com we watched?
Might have been Vacation Friends 2, or it might have also been that George Clooney movie where he goes to Bali with Julia Roberts.
Surprisingly not a bad movie.
Right? There's a company in the US called Whip Media. Whip like...
Yep.
They do something similar. What they do is they have a much larger sample size, over 2,000 customers. They look at the industry as a whole and they rate and rank individual streaming services. We do that from the bottom up. They do it from the top down. We look at the individual shows and convert that to the platform. They look at the customers and look down to the platforms that each customer has.
Okay.
Every year, Whip Media produces what they call their satisfaction survey. Just a few weeks ago, they released the 2023 numbers. We thought that there was some interesting takes. It might be interesting for us to share that and see, where the media landscape is today.
Okay. Where shall we begin?
What's important to note is that the survey is segmented by two tiers or two classes of streaming services. The major players, or the big tier, whatever you want to call them. This is effectively Netflix, Disney, and HBO. The rough calculation is that the identifier to what is a big tier service is the number of subscribers. So, Netflix is at 240 million, Disney's at 220 million, and HBO is at just under 100 million. It's at 95 odd million. And then the mid-tiers are basically everyone else. However, there is one notable outlier. Amazon Prime is considered a mid-tier, even though they have 200 million plus subscribers.
No.
And the reason is because Amazon Prime isn't a media company first.
Nonsense.
They give Prime Video for free to their Prime shipping customers.
So just to put this in perspective, when we're looking at these numbers, am I correct to say a streaming platform should only be concerned about two things? One, what is the level of satisfaction compared to competing platforms? And what is the trend of satisfaction over like the past 2 to 3 years, right?
100%. The satisfaction levels will have a direct impact on revenue.
Yeah.
It's the top line number that gets affected by satisfaction, because if your satisfaction is down, you're less likely to subscribe to that platform, which means that platform is going to make less money.
So with that said, who comes out on top in terms of the platform that has like the highest level of satisfaction?
That is actually the first takeaway of this survey. And the number one platform with the highest satisfaction in 2023 is Max, or HBO Max.
No way.
If you think about it, all things being equal, that kind of
Yeah.
makes sense, because remember, HBO Max, as it was known last year, won our Streamies for best platform in 2022.
If we are looking at, yes, I think that's probably right, begrudgingly, in terms of the best content available on the platform, I can absolutely see Max subscribers as very, very satisfied. As a platform, I think Max is pretty miserable, but I agree, their content is actually quite good. So
we're going to get to that. You're jumping ahead a few steps on that, but that's absolutely right. If you look at the mid tiers, you're looking at Apple, Prime Video, and Peacock are the only ones that have increased satisfaction. Everyone else has either dropped or stayed the same at best.
Apple, Prime, and Peacock have increased satisfaction.
So generally speaking, we haven't done much with Peacock on our podcast, because Peacock is really, NBC is really an American only.
Yeah.
There are a few programs on Peacock, but they're much harder to come by internationally, and certainly not through Peacock. We'll see them on other platforms.
Yeah.
The second takeaway is the quality of original programming amongst mid-tiers.
All right.
We're only looking at mid-tier platforms, and I think Whip Media's rationale at only looking at the mid-tiers for this is that the big boys are so big, they're kind of like almost must-haves.
I feel like this is a little bit ridiculous, because in this question, they are considering Prime and Apple TV Plus to be mid-tiers, right?
They are, yeah.
They are both, yes, smaller than Netflix, but like, what else is left?
Apple, Hulu, Paramount Plus, Prime Video, Peacock, those are the mid-tiers. And then, of course, as you've alluded to already, Hulu is probably going to be a part of Disney as of next year. But at least for this year, it's still a standalone service.
Disney, Netflix, and Max are then the upper tier.
Yeah. As you're probably already guessed, Apple TV has the highest satisfaction for the best original content, and it's not even close.
Quite well deserved, I would say.
Absolutely. And it's not even close. They're 10 percentage points above the next closest competitor at Hulu. That is not just well deserved. I think that's also something that we've seen through the Films and Stuff podcast.
Yeah.
We've seen a lot of Apple programs, and in general, we've been fans of Apple programming.
We have.
I think Apple is also one of the fewer platforms that has also focused on feature-length films, not just TV series.
Yeah.
The other thing to take away is that every platform has gained year on year. That's a good thing to see.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I mean, even I think our own anecdotal evidence would support that, particularly Paramount Plus, particularly Peacock. Both started a little bit slow, have added some high quality original content. I don't know about why Amazon Prime is so low for original content. Are they saying something like Rings of Power do not count as original content, or that's original content that's just not rated very highly?
This is the satisfaction levels on the original content.
Okay.
So it's not about the number. It's about how happy the people are with the original content that they do have. The two big takeaways: Apple is doing the best out of all the mid-tiers, but every platform has increased the satisfaction level, which is to say that everyone's content has gotten better.
That's good to know.
Now we get into the point you're talking about, is the variety of original content year on year for the mid-tiers.
This also has to be increasing, right?
every platform has increased its satisfaction in terms of variety, which leads me to say that every platform has gotten more content. The second thing is that Apple, again, has the best satisfaction from its variety of programs.
So this means that people are looking at not just does it have more, but does it have more better? It's not just, hey, great, there's 10 crappy shows now instead of 5. They're saying there's great 3 more good new shows than last time.
It tracks because, for example, last year, we saw 14 shows on Apple TV throughout the entire year.
Wow, not bad, not bad.
In the first 9 months of 23, we've seen 26.
You know, Pete, where my mind is going on this is that this is going to be a fascinating survey in 12 months from now.
Yes.
Because thanks to the writer's strike, the actor's strike, I would expect that these numbers could dramatically drop.
I totally agree with you, and that's absolutely right. Most people wouldn't think of it now, but that's because we haven't seen the true impact of the writers and actors strike on TV yet.
Yeah.
We've started to see a little bit of it on the movie side, but the TV side, not yet, because of the way production lead times are. I think we're going to get to see a lot of that impact in the first quarter and maybe even the second quarter of next year.
I mean, movies, we've both been really impacted, and maybe the worst to come. But yeah, television probably is coming in the winter months, next month or two, huh?
Okay, and then the next takeaway is we're going to look at the user experience, which you've already touched upon, ranked by satisfaction for each platform. Now, this is all platforms because user experience is a more universal thing. It has nothing to do with subscriber numbers.
So surprised me, Pete. Who decreased the most in terms of satisfaction?
Hilariously enough, the 2 platforms that decreased the most were HBO Max and Netflix. Netflix and Disney were number 1 and 2, higher than anybody else. That also makes sense because Netflix has been around the longest. Disney also has the most money. So they've both got experience and financial resources to ensure that their user experience is very good. Max, the experience is bad. And of course, the worst is actually Prime Video, which listeners of this podcast will know is virtually unusable to a lot of people. You can't pay for HBO Max. I can't watch the things that I've paid for with Prime Video. Not good.
I agree. Max, I think, is an abomination just in terms of accessing it and trying to interact with it. Prime, I think, is very easy to use, but your dissatisfaction and my dissatisfaction comes from is that not all their titles are available in all jurisdictions, and they seem to have very tight controls, even if you're using a VPN. Other platforms do not. That's, I think, where dissatisfaction of Prime comes in.
Prime Video knows I'm traveling. It even has a section for while you're abroad, and there's a series of shows that you can watch. And when I click on while I'm abroad, it says this content is not available while you're traveling at your current location. I said, why is there a section called while you're abroad?
You know what would be interesting, and I don't think we've thought of this, but I would bet if you're traveling to India and you went to the Amazon UK website, they would allow you to order things from that Amazon UK website.
They do.
They're not saying, hey, you're traveling, you can't order anything from us. When it comes to actually taking your money, it's fine. They will take it even though you're traveling. When it comes to letting you watch content you've already paid for while you're traveling, they say, no, that's not possible. That's fundamentally unfair.
You want to hear something even worse?
I do, but it's going to make me angry, I know.
I use Amazon.co.uk because I'm a UK subscriber to Prime and, of course, to Prime Video. Fine, no issues there. I can't watch Amazon.co.uk here, as you just said, but I can buy stuff here in India and in the UK through it.
That's nonsense.
Wait, it gets even better. I have an Amazon.in account. So I have an Amazon India account, I can log in with all of my UK credentials on my Amazon India account. I didn't need to sign up for it. I can buy stuff on Amazon India, but when I go to Prime Video Amazon India, they said, you're not a Prime subscriber. We're not going to let you watch it.
Totally nonsense. Totally nonsense. I'm so angry for you.
It's crazy. They're happy to take my money in London. They're happy to take my money in India. They're happy to let me watch while I'm in London, but they're not happy to let me watch on either platform while I'm in India.
It would not be okay, but there would be some logic to it if you were trying to watch reruns of Friends, Frasier, some sitcom that they could arguably say, look, we don't really have the license rights for that where you are. It's a technicality. You'd say that's nonsense, but I understand. When it's their own original content, it is impossible that they have any justification for why their own content that you have paid for cannot be viewed while you are traveling.
I mean, there's a reason why I dread getting an Amazon Prime show on our stream or skip random assignments.
Yeah. I'm the same way with Max.
Yeah.
All right. What's the next takeaway we've got?
The next big point is we're looking at the satisfaction levels based on program recommendations. And here you'll notice that in terms of programming recommendations, the only ones who have made headway this year are the mid-tier platforms. Netflix has not increased or decreased its satisfaction level, even though it is the highest. And I think that's just due to the fact that they've been in the business the longest. They've got a very fine-tuned recommendation algorithm. They also have a huge content library, so they're able to give you a ton more recommendations.
Yeah.
Everyone else, Apple TV increased 6%, Paramount increased 4%, Peacock increased 4%. The ones that went down, Max and Disney.
What do you think is driving that with Disney, for example? Disney is a little bit curious to me because I feel like the Disney library is so limited that either people would love it because they're subscribing only for Star Wars or for MCU, or they're not subscribing at all. I would feel like Disney is extremely high on the satisfaction.
Yeah, I think it's because the smaller streamers, they're providing not just more content, but that content that they are providing is resonating more with their users. And I think, for example, with Disney, even though it's content that on paper should resonate with their users, the quality of that content isn't, right? So, like, for example, I don't want to be recommended Secret Invasion. Even though I'm a fan of the MCU, I thought Secret Invasion was so bad. Like, I don't want to get that recommendation.
Too bad. You're going to get it.
Yeah.
What do you think is going to happen when Disney and Hulu formally merge?
I think that's when you see the recommendation satisfaction will go up. And I think that's fine. I think that's absolutely the right approach. The next major takeaway, and this is where things get a little more spicy now, the value proposition for each streaming platform. What we're seeing is that Disney currently provides the highest level of satisfaction in terms of value, but both Disney and Max also suffered the greatest loss year on year. So even though Disney and Max are the highest right now, they would have been higher had they not dropped as much.
Peacock and Apple TV Plus have increased the most.
Have increased the most. And of course, Netflix has actually dropped. And funnily enough, this is the big takeaway. Netflix is now the lowest in terms of value amongst the satisfaction for its users.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I'm a little bit surprised by that because I don't think Netflix is terribly expensive.
Well, it's not, but I think that the reason that it's dropped is a lot of it has to do with the fact that, first of all, a lot of these platforms have increased their price points. And two, maybe most importantly, Netflix has cracked down on password sharing.
Have you noticed that on Netflix?
I haven't personally noticed that because I have the ultimate tier platform, which allows all members of our family
Oh, yeah.
to
We must have
watch.
the same thing.
But I know that when I've given my password to a cousin to watch a show, he gets a prompt that says, this doesn't look like your IP addresses from the account owners. You need to log in again or you need to confirm. There was some pop-up or prompt came up.
Are you related to Pete? That's the pop-up.
The next one, this is again where it gets spicy. The likeliness to keep the service.
Who says yes and who says no?
Prime users and Hulu users are the most likely to keep their service.
Ah.
The Prime thing makes total sense to me. It's a free value add for Amazon Prime shopping.
Yeah.
The big takeaway from this is that Max and Netflix both dropped the most.
The hard thing about Netflix is so huge that any fluctuation, I'm not sure if we should overreact to it or underreact to it. When Netflix loses 1% of its subscriber base, that's a massive amount of money that's left the door, right?
Yeah,
and they
exactly.
increase by 1%, it's a massive influx. 1% for Max is probably huge. 1% for Netflix is not so huge. It's a huge number in terms of subscribers, but it's still just a 1%. You know, it may disproportionately impact a smaller or so-called like mid-tier subscribing platform, right?
And you're already getting to the next 2 points. The first of which is the overall satisfaction of the top tier platforms.
Yeah.
Ultimate takeaway from that is that satisfaction amongst all three has been dropping.
Yeah.
Disney satisfaction has been dropping. Max's and Netflix's has been dropping. Netflix's has dropped the most. It's dropped nearly 15% over the last 3 years.
Why do you think that is? Is that people having higher expectations or the quality just sucking more?
I think there's a third element to that. I think it's certainly higher expectations. I think it's certainly that the quality is decreased. I think it's certainly that prices have gone up and user experience has decreased.
Oh, that's
right.
But
I think that the other problem is that other platforms have stepped up their game.
There's more competition.
And I think Netflix was caught flat-footed. And we see that the most because the last major point, which is because Netflix is the biggest, it's 20 million subscribers more than Disney. The last key indicator they look at is what they call the indispensability of Netflix. 3 years ago, 41% of users said that Netflix was the most indispensable platform that they own.
Wow. That's just like a crazy number, huh? 41% of people.
It's unbelievable. 41% is a crazy good number to have. This year, 27.
Wow.
It's dropped significantly over the last 2 years. It's still the most popular platform, but right now it's also one of the most precarious ones.
Yeah.
I think the main takeaway from this survey is this. Everyone is trying their best to take down Netflix because Netflix is the king. It's been around the longest. It's got the greatest numbers. Mm-hmm. And I don't think that any clear platform has been crowned as the permanent replacement over Netflix. Mm-hmm. But what they've done successfully is they've chipped away at Netflix's aura of
invincibility.
I think that's exactly right. I think a lot of people have said, look, if I'm only going to spend, let's say $20 a month, 3 years ago, I was way more likely to say I'm only going to subscribe to Netflix.
Yeah.
Now, I'm a lot less likely to say that it's only going to be Netflix. It could be Apple TV. It could be, according to this, HBO Max. It could be anyone else. But the point is that I'm no longer looking at only Netflix. There are other viable alternatives to watch.
Yeah.
There may not be a permanent winner, or at least there may not be a defined winner, but there is a defined loser, and that loser is Netflix.
I think Netflix is heavily reliant on, some of its more well-known series like Umbrella Academy, Stranger Things,
Virgin River.
but also for its documentaries, right? I mean, Netflix is the master at a big event happens in the world, whether it's a scandal or sporting or something. And Netflix is usually the first to have an exclusive documentary on it. They move fast on things like that.
Yeah, I mean, they're a factory, they're a machine. They get stuff out fast. And frankly speaking, that usually comes at the cost of quality.
Yeah, usually. When was the survey produced?
So the survey was conducted at the end of July, and it came out, I think, last week.
Okay.
The principal takeaway is that the small tier platforms are getting better. User experience still leaves a lot to be desired across the front. The big boys are not in danger of losing a massive amount of subscribers and then having those subscribers go to the small guys, but they are in danger of losing subscribers.
You know what I would have liked to have seen, and I know that you would have as well, is a ranking of most popular original shows. You know, just kind of put it in perspective from, you know, the people that were being interviewed, what shows they really loved the most. You know, was it House of the Dragon, for example, on HBO? What was on Netflix? You know, was it Stranger Things? And then see what their number 2 is. It may indicate like what the future is of Netflix, because Stranger Things has one more season coming out.
Yeah, the last season, that's right.
Probably 6 months, huh? Not before.
Yeah, it's probably going to be summer of next year.
Okay. Well, overall, though, this probably dovetails a lot with our own experience and what we've identified through Streamer Skip or just kind of like on our regular episodes. There's nothing in here, I think, that's dramatically surprising. I think the order is a little bit interesting sometimes. And I think that it's good that they put some metrics to this, but I think we need to add individual shows to put it in perspective. There's a few benchmarks that maybe the mid-size platforms have, and if those hit, then they get a lot of recognition.
Yeah. The good thing about this survey was that from the other side, it validates a lot of the data we've produced.
Yeah.
I think that the Apple TV stuff in particular has been very confirming to me that what we're seeing with Apple TV is correct, right? I mean,
you're right.
If you look at Apple TV right now, we've got 4 programs that were must subscribes.
It's kind of like a don't just take our word for it. Like what we've been seeing and what we've been marking on our own spreadsheets, which we've posted before, seems to be supported by this WIT Media survey.
Yeah, exactly. And what's also interesting is that I think because this was based on July of this year, don't be surprised if the quality satisfaction for Netflix goes up, because this year has been particularly good for Netflix too.
I love these surveys. Like, I love the data that puts what we're seeing into context. It's always great when it validates what we're seeing and what we've been saying, you know, subjectively, but it's really nice to see some data on these things as well.
Yeah, exactly.
All right. Pete, if folks want to contact us and let them know their own experience, and if they disagree, agree, have noticed the same thing in some of the statistics, which I guess we'll probably post on our website and social media sites, where should they contact us? How should they ring our bell?
I think that's exactly the right thing. Why don't you reach out to us? You can tweet at us at FNS Podcast. You can DM us on Instagram at Films and Stuff Podcast. Email us aloha at filmsandstuffpodcast.com. Or the easiest thing you can do is like this video, subscribe to our channel, comment below, let us know what platforms you love, what you're subscribed to, what you don't want to subscribe to anymore. And then, of course, hit that notification bell so that when the next episode of the Films and Stuff podcast drops, you will be the first to know.
Appreciate you digging up all these statistics, putting them in a visual form that our listeners can see. Listeners, thanks for tuning in, and thanks in advance for your feedback and observations as well. Pete, we will sign off, and we will see everybody on the next episode of the Films and Stuff podcast.
Thanks, Ethan. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everyone. Bye now.
Thank you for listening to another episode of Films and Stuff. If you haven't already, please subscribe and review on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever podcasts are downloaded. Films and Stuff. There is no substitute.